If you're like me, you probably think New Year's resolutions are a bit silly. Most people approach changing their lives in a way that just doesn't work. They create these resolutions because everyone else does, finding a superficial meaning in status games, but they don't meet the deeper requirements for true, lasting change. It's more than just convincing yourself you'll be more disciplined this year. Now, if you're one of those people, I'm not here to judge. I've abandoned far more goals than I've ever achieved. I think that's true for most of us. But the fact remains, people try to change their lives and often fail repeatedly. However, as much as I find resolutions unproductive, reflecting on the life you dislike is always smart. It can launch you towards something far better. So whether you want to start a business, transform your body, or take a risk toward a more meaningful life without giving up after 2 weeks, I want to share 7 ideas you might not have heard before. These cover behavior change, psychology, and productivity, all designed to help you achieve your goals in the coming year. This isn't just a quick read you'll forget. This is something you want to bookmark, take notes on, and really set aside time to think about. The protocol I'll outline at the end, which helps you dig deep into your psyche to uncover what you truly want, will take about a full day to complete, but its effects can last much longer. Let's begin. Our first point is this. You aren't where you want to be because you aren't the person who would naturally be there. When people set big goals, they often focus on just one aspect of success, changing their actions to make progress. But that's actually the least important part. It's a secondary effect. The most important, primary change is altering who you are, so your desired behavior simply follows naturally. Most people set a surface-level goal, get themselves hyped up to be disciplined for a few weeks, and then easily revert to their old habits. Why? Because they're trying to build a great life on a rotting foundation. If that doesn't quite click, let's consider an example. Think of someone you consider successful. Maybe it's a bodybuilder with an incredible physique, a multimillionaire founder or CEO, or a charismatic person who can effortlessly charm a group. Do you think the bodybuilder has to grind to eat healthy food? Does the CEO have to force themselves to show up and lead their team? On the surface, it might seem that way, but the truth is, these individuals can't imagine living any other way. The bodybuilder would have to force themselves to eat unhealthily. The CEO would have to make themselves lie in bed past their alarm, and they'd hate every moment of it. To some people, my own lifestyle might appear extreme and disciplined. To me, it's just natural. I enjoy living this way. When my mom suggests I take a break and have some fun, I have to stop myself from saying, if I wasn't having fun, why would I be doing this? This next statement might seem simple, but it's baffling how many people miss it. If you want a specific outcome in life, you must adopt the lifestyle that creates that outcome long before you actually reach it. If someone tells me they want to lose 30 pounds, I often have my doubts, not because I think they're incapable, but because too many times that same person will say, I can't wait until I'm done losing weight so I can enjoy life again. I hate to break it to you, but if you don't embrace the lifestyle that led to that weight loss permanently, and if you don't find a reason with a stronger pull than the one keeping you in your old ways, you'll go right back to where you started. And then you'll unhappily realize you wasted a resource you can never get back: time. When you genuinely change yourself, all the habits that don't move you towards your goal start to feel awful. You develop a deep, profound awareness of the kind of life those actions will compound into. Your current standards are okay with you only because you're not fully aware of what they truly are or where they lead. We'll explore how to uncover this, but first we need to build up to it. You say you want to change, to become financially free or get healthy, but your actions often tell a different story, and there's a deep reason why. Our second point is intertwined. You aren't where you want to be because you don't truly want to be there. As Alfred Adler famously said, trust only movement. Life happens at the level of events, not of words. Trust movement. If you want to change who you are, you need to understand how your mind works so you can start to reprogram it. The first step is realizing that all behavior is goal-oriented. It's teleological. This seems obvious on the surface, but when we dig deeper, many people resist this idea. You take a step forward because you want to reach a specific place. You scratch your nose because you want to make an itch disappear. Those are clear, but most of the time your goals are unconscious. For instance, when you sit on the couch in the middle of the day, you might unknowingly be trying to burn time before your next responsibility. On an even more unconscious and complex level, you pursue goals that can actually harm you, but you justify these actions in ways that seem socially acceptable or don't make you look like a failure. If you can't stop procrastinating your work, you might rationalize it by saying you lack discipline. But in reality, you're trying to achieve a goal, just as you always are. In this case, that goal could be protecting yourself from the judgment that might come from finishing and sharing your work. If you say you want to quit your dead-end job, but stay in it without a clear reason, you might think you lack courage or aren't a risk taker. But the truth is, you're pursuing the goal of safety, predictability, and an excuse not to appear a failure to those in your life who might see working a steady job, even a dead-end one, as a sign of success. The lesson here is that real change requires altering your goals. I don't mean setting some superficial goal that actually serves an unconscious, harmful purpose. That's been discussed enough in the productivity space. I mean changing your fundamental point of view, because that's what a goal truly is. A goal is a projection into the future, acting as a lens of perception that allows you to notice information, ideas, and resources that help you achieve it. We need to dig deeper into this, because if you don't grasp it, it only becomes harder to move forward. This brings us to our third point. You aren't where you want to be because you're afraid to be there. Maxwell Maltz gave us a powerful insight. It does not matter in the least how you got the idea or where it came from. If you have accepted an idea, and further, if you are firmly convinced that idea is true, it has the same power over you as the hypnotist's words have over the hypnotized subject. Here's how you've become who you are today and how you'll become who you will be tomorrow. It's an anatomy of identity. First, you want to achieve a goal. Then you perceive reality through the lens of that goal. You only notice important information and ideas that help you achieve it, which is how you learn. Next, you act towards that goal and receive feedback that you're progressing. You repeat this behavior until it becomes automatic and unconscious, a process of conditioning. That behavior then becomes part of who you think you are, leading to statements like, "I am the type of person who." Then you defend your identity to maintain psychological consistency, and this identity then shapes new goals, restarting the cycle. If that identity is detrimental to a good life, this cycle can get very bad very quickly. The unfortunate reality is you must break the cycle between defending your identity and letting it shape new goals. But this process often starts when you're a child. You have a goal of survival, and you're dependent on your parents to teach you how to survive, meaning you have to conform. Since most teaching involves reward and punishment, you're punished unless you adopt their beliefs and values. You don't truly think for yourself until you see through this. But your parents also went through this process their entire lives. That's where it becomes dangerous. Your parents, unless they broke the pattern themselves, were conditioned by the culturally accepted ideas of success from the industrial age. They also carry the best and worst conditioning from their parents and their parents' parents. Taking it a layer deeper, once your physical survival needs are met, which is fairly easy in today's world, you start to survive on a conceptual or ideological level. You might not be trying to protect your body, but you absolutely protect and reproduce your mind. It's easy to see the war of ideas online, with participants driven by individual and group identities. When your body feels threatened, you go into fight or flight. When your identity feels threatened, the same thing happens. If you're heavily identified with a political ideology through the process we just discussed, you'll feel threatened when someone challenges your beliefs. You'll literally feel stress, emotionally, feeling as if you've been slapped. Since most people don't analyze their emotions for truth, they tend to get stuck in echo chambers and double down on claims that harm themselves and others. The same thing happens if you were raised in a religious household and didn't think for yourself. You'll fight and attack others who threaten your psychological safety within that bubble. And it happens when you unconsciously see yourself as a lawyer or a gamer or someone else who wouldn't take the actions needed to achieve a better life. This leads to our fourth point. The life you want lies within a specific level of mind. The mind evolves through predictable stages over time. When you're born, you're like a little survival sponge, absorbing beliefs heavily dictated by your culture to feel safe and secure. If you're not careful, your mind can crystallize, making it difficult to live a meaningful life. This has been well documented in models like Maslow's hierarchy, Gruder's stages of ego development, spiral dynamics, and integral theory, all building on each other. And it's also not hard to observe in society. I've often discussed these, synthesizing them into my own Human 3.0 model, but here's a quick 80-20 refresher on the 9 stages of ego development, as repetition can reveal new insights. First, there's the impulsive stage. No separation between impulse and action, black and white thinking, like a toddler hitting when angry, because the feeling and behavior are the same thing. Then self-protective. The world is dangerous, and you learn to look out for yourself, like a kid hiding bad report cards. Next, conformist. You are your group, and its rules feel like reality itself, someone who can't fathom why anyone would vote differently than their family. Moving on to self-aware, you notice you have an inner life that doesn't match the exterior, like sitting in church and realizing you're not sure you believe what everyone else seems to believe. Conscientious, you build your own system of principles and hold yourself accountable, perhaps leaving a family religion after careful study to adopt the personal philosophy. Individualist, you see that your principles were shaped by context and start holding them more loosely, realizing your political views relate more to where you grew up than objective truth. Strategist, you work with systems while aware of your own involvement, leading an organization while questioning your own blind spots. Construct-aware, you see all frameworks, even your identity, as useful fictions, holding spiritual beliefs metaphorically, knowing the map isn't the territory. Finally, unitive, the separation between self and life dissolves, where work, rest, and play feel like the same thing, with no one left who needs to become something. For most people listening, I'd assume you hover between stages 4 and 8, which is a huge range. Those closer to 8 are probably listening to learn or pass time constructively. Those closer to 4 are truly seeking change, feeling meant for more but struggling to make sense of everything because there's so much at play. The good news is your exact stage doesn't really matter because moving through any of them follows a predictable pattern. This brings us to our 5th point. Intelligence is the ability to get what you want out of life. Naval Ravikant said, "The only real test of intelligence is if you get what you want out of life." There's a formula for success. One ingredient is agency. Another is opportunity, which many mistake for privilege because they lack the other ingredients. The last ingredient is intelligence. If you have high agency but low opportunity, it doesn't matter how much you act toward a goal, it won't bear much fruit. If you have opportunity and agency but low intelligence, you'll never fully benefit from that opportunity. We've talked about agency before. Regarding opportunity, while I can't tell you to change your physical location, if you don't see the abundance of digital opportunity right in front of you, I'm not sure what to say. But now I want to focus on what intelligence means in the context of these other 2 ingredients and our discussion. For that, we turn to cybernetics. Cybernetics comes from the Greek word kybernetikos, meaning to steer or good at steering. It's also known as the art of getting what you want. So if Naval's definition of intelligence is getting what you want out of life, understanding cybernetics helps you do that much faster. Cybernetics illustrates the properties of intelligent systems, having a goal, acting toward it, sensing where you are, comparing that to the goal, and then acting again based on that feedback. Think of a ship blown off course that corrects its path. a thermostat sensing a temperature change and turning on, or the pancreas excreting insulin when blood glucose spikes. What does this have to do with getting what you want out of life? Everything. Acting, sensing, comparing, and understanding the system from a meta perspective is fundamental to high intelligence, by our definition here. High intelligence is the ability to iterate, persist, and understand the big picture. The mark of low intelligence is the inability to learn from mistakes. Low intelligent people get stuck on problems instead of solving them. They hit a roadblock and quit. Consider a writer who fails to build a readership and quits because they lack the ability to try new things, experiment, and figure out a process that works for them. To think there isn't an effective process you can create, no matter your limiting beliefs, is demonstrably false, and thus a sign of low intelligence. High intelligence is realizing any problem can be solved given enough time. The reality is you can achieve any goal you set your mind to. Intelligence is realizing there's a series of choices you can make that lead to achieving that goal. You understand that ideas are hierarchical. You can't go from papyrus to Google Docs in one giant leap. Even if a goal seems impossible right now, you might simply lack the resources, which may even be invented in the coming years, to achieve it. When I talk about goals, and I'll keep repeating this, I'm not speaking from the typical self-help perspective, though that can be useful at times. I'm speaking from the lens of teleology, or the Greek kosmos, that everything serves a purpose, that everything is part of a greater whole. Goals determine how you see the world. Goals determine what you consider success or failure. You can try to enjoy the journey, but if you pursue the wrong goal, you won't enjoy it. Your mind is the operating system for reality, and that system is composed of goals. For most people, those goals are assigned to them, programmed like lines of code in their psyche. Go to school, get the job, get offended, play victim, retire at 65. It's a known path that just doesn't work. To become more intelligent, you must reject the known path, dive into the unknown, set new, higher goals to expand your mind, embrace chaos for growth, and study the generalized principles of nature, becoming a deep generalist. I understand this might not be the traditional definition of intelligence, but this sequence of steps leads to an extraordinary level of neural connections in your brain, resulting in what we'd observe as an intelligent person. Pair that with agency, and you've got a winner. That leads us perfectly into our next section. This is the core, how to launch into a completely new life. And you can do it in just one day. The best periods of my life have always followed a time when I got absolutely fed up with my lack of progress. How do you dig into your mind? How do you become aware of your conditioning? How do you reach profound insights and truths that change your life's trajectory? Through the simple, yet often painful act of questioning, something so few people do, which you can often tell by how they speak or express their thoughts on a topic. Questioning is thinking, and very few people truly do it. I want to give you a comprehensive protocol you can use every year to reset your life and launch into a season of intense progress. This protocol helps you ask the right questions, covering everything from the macro to the micro: where you want to be, what you need to do to get there, and what you can do immediately to start moving toward that reality. It requires 1 full day to complete, so I recommend following it exactly. You'll need a pen, paper, and an open mind. When I observe patterns in people who successfully transform their identity, it happens quickly after a buildup of tension. Specifically, I've noticed 3 phases. First, dissonance. They feel they don't belong in their current life and become sufficiently fed up with their lack of progress. Second, uncertainty. They don't know what comes next, so they either experiment or get lost and feel worse. Third, discovery. They find what they truly want to pursue and make 6 years of progress in 6 months. So our goal with this protocol is to help you reach dissonance, navigate uncertainty, and discover what you truly want to achieve with such overwhelming clarity that distractions lose their power. This protocol is structured to be completed in one day. In the morning, you'll do a psychological excavation to uncover hidden motives. Throughout the day, you'll prompt yourself with interrupts to keep you out of autopilot and contemplate your life. At night, you'll synthesize those insights into a new direction to start moving in tomorrow. I can't guarantee this will work for everyone. Not everyone is in the right chapter of their story for these points to be impactful. You can't put the climax at the start of a book and expect it to be interesting. Part 1 is the morning, psychological excavation, creating your vision and anti-vision. We first need to create a new frame, a new lens of perception for your mind to operate from. It's like shedding an old shell and slowly growing into a new one. It won't feel natural at first, and that's a good thing. Set aside 15 to 30 minutes, about the length of a YouTube video, to think about and answer these questions. Do not try to outsource this contemplation to AI. I want you to break past the mental limiter you have. If you can't answer these immediately, come back to them later.
First, what's the dull, persistent dissatisfaction you've learned to live with? Not deep suffering, but what you tolerate. If you don't hate it, you'll tolerate it. What do you complain about repeatedly but never actually change? Write down the 3 complaints you voiced most often in the past year. For each complaint, ask, what would someone observing your behavior, not your words, conclude you actually want? What truth about your current life would be unbearable to admit to someone you deeply respect? These questions are designed to make you aware of the pain in your current life. Now, we need to turn those into what I call an anti-vision, a brutal awareness of the life you absolutely do not want to live. That way, you can use that negative energy to aim your efforts in a positive direction, acting from intrinsic motivation. So if absolutely nothing changes for the next 5 years, describe an average Tuesday. Where do you wake up? How does your body feel? What's the first thing you think about? Who's around you? What do you do between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m.? How do you feel at 10 p.m.? Now do it again for 10 years. What have you missed? What opportunities closed? Who gave up on you? What do people say about you when you're not in the room? You're at the end of your life. You lived the safe version, never broke the pattern. What was the cost? What did you never let yourself feel, try, or become? Who in your life is already living the future you just described? Someone 5, 10, 20 years ahead on the same trajectory. What do you feel when you think about becoming them? What identity would you have to give up to actually change? Think, I am the type of person who... What would it cost you socially to no longer be that person? What's the most embarrassing reason you haven't changed? The one that makes you sound weak, scared, or lazy rather than reasonable? If your current behavior is a form of self-protection, what exactly are you protecting, and what is that protection costing you? If you answered those truthfully, and if you're in the right chapter of your life, you'll feel a deep sense of unease, possibly disgust for how you're currently living. Now we need to orient that energy in a positive direction. We need to create a minimum viable vision, because your vision is like a product. It starts unclear, but with time and experience, it grows stronger and more potent. Forget practicality for a moment. If you could snap your fingers and be living a different life in 3 years, not what's realistic, but what you actually want, what does an average Tuesday look like with the same level of detail as before? What would you have to believe about yourself for that life to feel natural rather than forced? Write this identity statement. I am the type of person who... And finally, what is one thing you would do this week if you were already that person? Answer all of those first thing tomorrow morning.
Part 2 is throughout the day, interrupting autopilot and breaking unconscious patterns. These journaling exercises are good, but we want real change, and that won't happen if you don't break the current unconscious patterns keeping you stuck. Throughout the day, I want you to contemplate everything you journaled in Part 1. Beyond that, don't forget to contemplate. Please take this seriously. You won't change by doing the same things for the rest of your life. You need to consciously force a pattern break. Take the time now to create reminders or calendar events on your phone. Include the question in the reminder so you can immediately start thinking about it. The more random and non-conflicting with your schedule they are, the better. For example, at 11 a.m., ask, what am I avoiding right now by doing what I'm doing? At 1:30 p.m., if someone filmed the last 2 hours, what would they conclude I want from my life? At 3:15 p.m., am I moving toward the life I hate or the life I want? At 5 p.m., what's the most important thing I'm pretending isn't important? At 7:30 p.m., what did I do today out of identity protection rather than genuine desire? Hint, it's most things you do. At 9 p.m., when did I feel most alive today? When did I feel most dead? To add more fuel to the fire, schedule these questions during times when you're commuting, walking, or just lying around. What would change if I stopped needing people to see me as the identity you wrote down earlier? Where in my life am I trading aliveness for safety? What's the smallest version of the person I want to become that I could be tomorrow? Part 3 is evening, synthesizing insight and entering a season of progress. If you followed that process, I'd be surprised if you didn't have at least one profound insight that could alter the course of your life. Now we need to make those insights known, integrate them, and act on them to solidify your journey to a new level of mind. After today, what feels most true about why you've been stuck? What is the actual enemy? Name it clearly. Not circumstances, not other people. It's the internal pattern or belief that has been running the show. Write a single sentence that captures what you refuse to let your life become. This is your anti-vision compressed. It should evoke a strong feeling when you read it. Write a single sentence that captures what you're building toward, knowing it will evolve. This is your vision MVP. Lastly, we need to create goals. Again, these aren't goals set for the sake of achievement, because goals are just projections, unreliable, and they can make you feel bound to something that will inevitably change. Instead, think of goals as a point of view, a lens you can exchange to enter the right state of mind to perform actions that move you away from the life you don't want. Don't worry about some finish line, because as we'll find, it doesn't exist. Enjoyment is found in progress. So, your 1-year lens. What would have to be true in 1 year for you to know you've broken the old pattern? One concrete thing. Your 1-month lens. What would have to be true in 1 month for that 1-year lens to remain possible? And your daily lens. What are 2 to 3 actions you can time block tomorrow that the person you're becoming would simply do? That was a lot. Hopefully it was helpful. But we have one last piece to lock it all in. Stick with our final point. Point 7 is to turn your life into a video game. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi observed, the optimal state of inner experience is one in which there is order in consciousness. This happens when psychic energy, or attention, is invested in realistic goals, and when skills match the opportunities for action. The pursuit of a goal brings order and awareness because a person must concentrate attention on the task at hand and momentarily forget everything else. You now have all the components that lead to a good life. Now it can be helpful to organize your insights into one coherent plan. Pull out a new page and write down these 6 components. First, your anti-vision. What is the bane of your existence, the life you never want to experience again? Second, your vision. What is the ideal life you think you want, knowing you can improve it as you work toward it? Third, your 1-year goal. What will your life look like in 1 year, and is that closer to the life you want? Fourth, your 1-month project. What do you need to learn? What skills do you need to acquire? What can you build that moves you closer to the 1-year goal? Fifth, your daily levers. What are the priority, needle-moving tasks that bring your project closer to completion? And sixth, your constraints. What are you not willing to sacrifice to achieve your vision from the ground up? Why is this so powerful? Because these components literally create your own little world. If you're meant to pursue this hierarchy of goals at this stage of your life, you'll have no other option but to become obsessed. You'll feel the pull towards something greater. You won't see anything else as an option. You turn your life into a video game because games are the ultimate example of obsession, enjoyment, and flow states.
They have all the components that lead to focus and clarity. If we reverse engineer those components, we can live in a state of deeper enjoyment, fewer distractions, and more success. Your vision is how you win, at least until the game evolves. Your anti-vision is what's at stake if you lose or give up. Your one-year goal is the mission, your sole priority in life. Your one-month project is the boss fight, how you gain XP and acquire loot. Your daily levers are the quests, the daily process that unlocks new opportunities. And your constraints are the rules, the limitations that encourage creativity. All of these act as a concentric set of circles, like a force field, guarding your mind from distractions and shining objects. The more you play the game, the stronger this force becomes, and soon enough it becomes who you are, and you wouldn't have it any other way. This comprehensive guide to behavior change, psychology, and productivity was drawn from the insightful work of Dan. Thanks for listening. If you found these ideas valuable, consider sharing this episode with someone who might benefit from it.